Hello, this is Justin Williams with the Wolfpacker Podcast. I'm joined today, as always, by editor of the Wolfpacker.com and fellow co-host Matt Carter. And today, we've got a lot to talk about. We're going to do our best to get through everything. Spring football has arrived. ACC Women's Tournament is coming up. ACC Men's Basketball finishing up its season. A lot of great stuff going on. Baseball's rolling. We got Tommy Tanks, Matt. We haven't talked about Tommy Tanks, so we're going to try to get to as much of this as possible in about 30 or 40 minutes. But if we don't get to everything, we will have another podcast coming out next week for sure, and we will touch on anything that we missed there. But before we get started, some quick reminders for the listeners and viewers at home. Please remember to subscribe, rate, and review this podcast wherever you listen to us. We're on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Play, everywhere you listen to podcasts. Plus, you can always watch us on our YouTube channel. Please subscribe to our YouTube channel if you haven't already. I know that most of our loyal audience has done that, but I'm sure there are a few stragglers out there. So if you haven't already, I know I remind you every podcast, but please subscribe to our YouTube channel. It helps us out tremendously. And while you're at it, give this video a thumbs up and drop a comment if you feel so inclined. Another reminder, go to thewolfpacker.com right now and take advantage of a special deal the On3 Network has going on. For just $1, you can get a year's worth of premium subscription to the On3 Network, which includes all of the great work at thewolfpacker.com. So if you call yourself a true NC State fan, if you consider yourself a true diehard, you're a member of thewolfpacker.com. So if you aren't already a part of the site, better go take advantage of that special deal going on. $1 gets you a year's worth of subscription. It'll take you through to next March, all the way through next basketball season. So there you go. All right, Matt. First on the docket, NC State is a football school. NC State is a football school, and we are going to talk about football in March. It seems weird. NC State, Tobacco Road. You think March, you think we're all basketball, but no. We are rolling, rocking and rolling for spring football, Matt. I know you were excited to get out there on the practice field yesterday. Before the podcast, you're telling me, Justin, you wouldn't believe it. The first practice you're not able to attend, Dave Doran pulls out the entire playbook for us. He goes through everything. He shows all the, he poured out all the secrets in spring football, right, Matt? How much did you learn yesterday?
Yeah, you should see this trick play that they're going to work on for the very first play at East Carolina. It's nuts. It's going to blow your mind away. It's going to start with a bunch of players stretching. So, they're kind of stretching in a little bit. So they're going to really catch East Carolina off guard. And then they're all going to scatter in different directions, like the position groups.
Okay.
And ECU not going to know what hit them at that point. No, we didn't see anything. I did, you get a chance to see the depth chart. That's the main thing. There's some interesting things there. Bryson Speeds getting the early nod at left tackle. I thought it was kind of an interesting because who's going to replace Icky, who's at the NFL Draft Combine, apparently impressing everybody with his physique at the Combine during the press conference. Tim McKay with that right tackle. So how that offensive tackle situation is going to play out was probably the most interesting thing. Defensive line was pretty short-handed with some injuries and a couple of transfers. So that was probably you saw Peyton Wilson look like he's ready to go. I think they're just taking it easy with him, but he looked pretty impressive and ready to go. He looked in great shape physically. And so, you got a good position battle at safety. From what I saw, Zakeen Harris was still running kind of first string. But that's going to be a good competition over there at strong safety opposite Tanner Engel. But there wasn't a whole lot. It wasn't a practice where you can say, oh, my goodness, so-and-so looked great, or so-and-so looked awesome, or this guy looks like he's going to be great, etc. I mean, it was mainly you got the first glimpse of what the depth chart may look like. Another interesting one is, look, They look like they're going to try Thayer Thomas on the outside at receiver and put Porter Rooks in as kind of to replace Emeka Emeji. So that was the main thing that got out of it. They look in excellent shape. They were moving fast, as you would expect. It's an older group. They know what they're supposed to do in practice. And you got a first look at the depth chart. But then again, there are a lot of guys that are sitting out this spring. So there's some guys where, they would be in the depth chart, but they're not there right now.
Another important question for you. Did you wear a cup?
No, I don't need to. I keep my eye on the football. Unlike.
So I guess you weren't taking any
but
video.
That did come up during the practice. There were a lot of people talking about that. Remember last practice we had where that one guy, who was it? That one guy got hit in the nuts.
Wow.
With the definite pass.
Oh, okay. Well, glad to hear the conversation is still rolling. I'm fully healed now, though. 7 months removed, so it's in hindsight. It's behind me now. But glad to hear that there weren't any tragic accidents that happened at this practice. Could not say the same about the media open fall practice last year. But another question I have for you, Matt. You were my eyes there. Was not there. Was only seeing the tweets. Did you see some of the early enrollees out there, and anybody catch your eye, just physically stand out to you?
Yeah, I thought the receiver Dale Jones from Maryland. Look, he's a super senior, right? He should stand out physically. He's been in a Big Ten strength and conditioning program for 4 years, but yeah, he looked like a guy who kind of fits right in with what NC State likes at outside receiver. And he actually moved really well. He looked pretty athletic. So I'd be curious. Right now, it looks like they want to kind of get Porter Rooks in that first line. But will that hold up, or will Dale Jones kind of elevate? But I thought he looked really good. Among the freshmen, I think Torrin Wright at linebacker, kind of looked like he would belong in the linebacker group. Still skinny compared to, say, a Drake Thomas, but he didn't look out of place. So he's one that kind of stood out from that regard. But there are a lot of old guys on this team, so it's hard for freshmen to really stand out, standing next to all these super seniors and fifth-year juniors and all of that stuff.
So about a dozen or so players listed as missing at least part or all of spring drills this practice session. Any of the names on the list surprise you? I mean, I don't want to go down the entire list here, but a good number of starters. I'd say half are starters. Probably a significant amount are probably not serious injuries, but rather just things that these guys are taken care of. And when you've got such an experienced team like you do, you don't want to take any risks in spring practice. The last thing this team needs is to lose an important player in the spring due to some freak accident. So anybody on that list surprise you, Matt, or anything that you were able to learn from talking to Doran after the practice yesterday?
Well, we learned that Isaiah Moore and Peyton Wilson will be full go by summertime. So just from the linebacker standpoint, Drake Thomas is out there, obviously, but it looks like his buddies should be back well before fall camp starts. The only one that was kind of surprising was Corey Durden, the first-team All-ACC nose tackle. There was never any mention of an injury there. He's probably the one guy on the list who didn't have an injury situation at the end of the year or during the year, like C.J. Clark and Peyton Wilson and Tyler Baker-Williams and Isaiah Moore. All those guys were kind of injured at some point during the season. Yeah, the one that maybe stood out that we didn't know about was Durden. And it goes back to, Corey Durden and C.J. Clark both not participating in the spring. They're pretty much down to one nose tackle, which is Joshua Harris. So that was the one group that looked thinnest. Like you could tell that they were, Terrell Dawkins and Ibrahim Conte transferred, C.J. Clark and Corey Durden sitting out. You could see not having 4 scholarship defensive linemen, what that meant to the position group.
I guess the last thing I'm curious about from this spring practice, because, it's good to see the guys out there. It's good to know, get a first look at maybe what the depth chart will be. But again, we're several months away from the season. A lot's going to change between now and then. What was the general vibe like? Like when you talked to Doran, I don't know if you were able to talk to any of the players, or I would imagine they kept practicing after, the media was there. But just, I'm sure they got some questions about the expectations this year, going into this year with, they've kind of put this on themselves. They put this on themselves with their play the last 2 seasons, but expectations are as high for NC State football going into 2022 as really I can ever remember in my lifetime, Matt. Maybe short of Phillip Rivers' seasons at NC State. So, how are they responding to that, and kind of what's their approach to that? Has anything changed in the demeanor of the team?
You can tell Doran is in a good mood. I mean, he would,
Well, new contract. Why wouldn't you be?
You got about 5 million reasons to be in a good mood, but
yeah.
He came in there. It's a beautiful day with the first thing he was saying.
Oh, wow.
And it was a beautiful day. It was picture perfect weather. I mean, I think practice ended. It was probably 65, almost 70 degrees at that point. It was a beautiful Raleigh spring afternoon or morning. They feel good. I think the main thing they've emphasized is good season. Yeah, they had a really good season, but they really didn't accomplish anything, right? A lot of things they didn't get. And for all the talk about they might be the best team in the ACC, they were not in the ACC championship game last year. They didn't get a chance to get that 10th win on the field. So they can say they were a 10-win team, but the reality is on the field, they won 9 games. So, I think that's as Dawn said, we're not going to get complacent around here just because people are talking good about us. We have to remember that we didn't win an ACC last year. We're not the defending ACC champion, or as Greg Thomas mentioned, we lost 2 games, referring to Miami and Wake Forest, that they felt like they should have won. Grant Gibson, I think, talked about it too. I think the mood is that they're going to try to hang their hat on unfinished business. They have unfinished business, and they don't want to waste the opportunity. So I think you'll see that as the theme that emerges this year for the Wolfpack.
So speaking of unfinished business, that's a great way to transition to the women's basketball team, who is now in Greensboro, I would assume, or if not in Greensboro now, is making its way to Greensboro. Okay, they are in Greensboro, probably a practice session before, they get 2 byes, right? They've got to sit around and wait for a little bit before they get their first games. Nice position to be in, but they are the 1 seed of the ACC tournament in Greensboro, first outright a regular season conference championship since 1990, Matt? It was either 89 or 90. Okay. 90. So, wow, 32 years, NC State finally wins the regular season outright. Again, we talked about on a podcast recently that they were darn close and arguably should have been the champions of the regular season last year. COVID happens, weird schedule, whatever. There weren't any asterisks this year. They get the 1 seed. There's no question about it, and they will await the winner of the 8-9 game, which plays today, the day we're recording this podcast, Thursday, March 3rd, between Boston College and Florida State. Don't anticipate any problems of NC State getting by the winner of those 2 games, but it could get interesting after that, setting up for a potential round 3 rematch between NC State and rival UNC in the semifinal. UNC has the 4 seed. They'll have to play the winner of Virginia Tech, and I don't know who won. I don't know who Virginia Tech's playing, to be honest with you. But Virginia Tech's probably going to win that game because they're a darn good team, and Virginia Tech UNC will be a great game. So NC State's going to have a tough test in the semifinal no matter who they face. But how do you think the bracket shapes up for NC State? And, just from talking to Wes Moore and some of the players, I mean, they've now won 2 of these things in a row. So obviously they're going into this tournament with a ton of confidence and knowing that they can go and win the whole thing. However, when you win 2 in a row, then you were already the hunted, and now you're extra hunted, right? So I mean, I'd have to imagine that even if they don't win the AC, if they get to the championship game and if they don't win it, if they don't beat Louisville, that I'd still think that they'd be a 1 seed. So I don't really think seeding matters in this necessarily, but it's about pride. What's their mentality going into this? And first question for you, Matt, how do you think the bracket shapes up for them?
Yeah, Boston College did take NC State to overtime when they played each other in BC. Now, that was at BC. And I know, that game is kind of emblematic of the season at times where NC State was the team that other ACC teams like Boston College, that was a bit of an upstart, who was fighting to be in the NCAA tournament, circled. That was their chance to get the best win of the season at home. They circled it. They had a crowd there. And they came out and played great. NC State was able to get to overtime and kind of dominated the extra overtime, the extra 5 minutes, and pulled out the win. But that was at BC. I think that they did win, I believe, at Florida State. I don't have it up there on my screen right now. For some reason, I want to say that Florida State game was not as tight. They played Florida State in Raleigh and crushed them pretty good by 20 points. So, and then the UNC potentially being there, but they may have to play Virginia Tech. Virginia Tech, neither one of those teams are an easy semifinal matchup. I mean, yes, NC State crushed UNC at home, but that was a gift wrap from Courtney Bainhart talking silly talk about Reynolds Coliseum before the game, and you don't poke the bear, right? I mean, you're going up against a team that's better than you. You pay your homage, and you hope to show up and surprise them on game day. You don't poke the bear. And she did and paid the price for it, and her team got steamrolled. But the second time around, it was a pretty competitive game on Super Bowl Sunday, I believe, or maybe it was around then. Maybe not Super Bowl Sunday.
I think it was the NFC and AFC Championship Sunday.
That's it.
Yeah,
thank you. And then, of course, Virginia Tech is probably the one team in the ACC that had matched up the best against NC State over the last 3 years now.
Yep.
And so that's interesting. And so, I mean, they just played each other, and it was a 2-point win for NC State. So that should be a tough semifinal game for NC State, because it's hard to beat your arch rival 3 times in 1 year, and the alternative very well would probably be the one team that has matched up the best with you and given you the hardest time over the past 3 years. That's because they got the ACC Player of the Year, who I was on the Blue Ribbon panel. I voted for Alyssa Cunane, full disclosure, to be Player of the Year. It was down to Alyssa Cunane and Kitley for Virginia Tech, the 2 Summerfield, North Carolina native, just outside of Greensboro.
Wrote a story on that before the tournament last year, so hey, look it up, cue it up, boom.
Yeah, Kitley had the better number, but I think that's because Cunane was on a better team, and head-to-head, Cunane, I thought, got the better of Kitley, certainly with 2 wins. But they don't one team in the ACC that can match up with Cunane.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's why it's a tough matchup for NC State. Yeah, I agree with you. I think they've locked into a 1 seed barring a first-round surprise. I think they're pretty locked into a 1 seed and locked in probably to go into Bridgeport Connecticut at the moment. I mean, maybe they could be shipped west if Louisville wins the ACC tournament. But that may not be a bad thing because it might mean you avoid having to play Connecticut in Connecticut.
Yep, with Paige Becker's back.
Yeah, in the regional. So the last NCAA bracket release sent Connecticut to the Greensboro region with South Carolina. But we'll see if that push comes to shove that they actually don't put Connecticut in Bridgeport, Connecticut. Because I don't know if you know this, Justin. The NCAA likes money, and they like to keep the money. And the opportunity to sell out Bridgeport, Connecticut in the women's NCAA basketball tournament, I'm going to guess might be particularly appealing to them come Selection Sunday or Monday or whatever it is.
So you're telling me that the NCAA cares about the women's basketball tournament now?
If they can make money on it, yes.
Oh, okay. I just, it took months for them to just get to the point where they'd make a logo that looked, similar enough to the men's tournament. I mean, it was like pulling teeth to get March Madness at center court for the women's tournament, but once you bring up ticket sales, I think they can start making some moves pretty quickly. Would be shocked to see UConn not in the Bridgeport regional. But that being said, I've got a hot take for you on this, Matt. You ready for a hot take?
Go for it.
I would love to see NC State go out and just dominate these next 3 games and claim a three-peat. It would be awesome for the program. Another feather in the cap. 3 years in a row, ACC Tournament champions. You're the tournament champions. You're the regular season champions. No dispute, best team in the ACC. That would be great. But my take is, NC State fans, to me, wouldn't be the worst thing in the world if they got upset at some point in this tournament. Because what that would do, in my opinion, is it would piss this team off to the point where they go to the NCAA tournament and they go on a tear. I felt like maybe last year there was they had the injury problems, but when you have so much success in the regular season, and then you get your first number 1 seed in program history, I don't care how much of a competitor you are, it's hard to not feel that sense of accomplishment and get a little bit complacent. If this team's angry, when this team's angry, you want to know what this team looks like when they're angry? It was when they played UNC in Reynolds Coliseum. That's the team that shows up when they're angry. And, if they lose a tough one against Louisville in the championship game, or maybe Virginia Tech knocks them off in the semifinal, I'm not hoping that happens. Don't get me confused here. All I'm saying is if we're thinking about the long game, wouldn't be the worst thing I don't think it would be the worst thing in the world. And I would put NC State and Penn in the Final Four. I don't care who they have in their regional bracket if somehow they don't win this ACC tournament. But that being said, I do expect them to win the tournament. I do think they're the best team in the ACC. There's no question about it. If they want to win it, I think they will go win it. But how about that for a hot take? Losing, maybe not that bad in this scenario. Your thoughts, Matt?
It's a hot take.
It's a hot take. I want to be clear. I'm rooting for NC State. I will be up. Championship game, noon on Sunday, Eastern time. I will be up at 9 a.m. with my cup of coffee, watching the action unfold in Greensboro, hoping that NC State hammers Louisville. That being said, I'm just saying, this team has bigger things on its mind than another ACC title. So, you want to go win an NCAA championship? That's what I'm rooting for. And I hope that they can get to the Final Four this year. Anything else on women's basketball before we close this podcast out with some Tommy Tanks talk?
No, let's get to Tommy.
Let's get to Tom. I mean, honestly, we probably should have led with Tommy. Because Tommy, I mean, he's making national headlines. To be talked about on a national stage as a freshman college baseball player in February, you got to do something really special. Matt, I don't know. Have you been able to get out to Doak Field for any games yet, or just watching them on ACC Network?
Yeah, I've been watching them all on the online, except for the one that was on ACC Network. I didn't get the chance to see the Campbell game that they lost, first loss of the season. By the way, Campbell's a good baseball team. Don't be fooled.
Yeah.
Um, and I don't think Tommy homered in that game, but I've watched pretty much all their games. I was watching it at the UNC NC State basketball game. I had it up on my computer watching it. That's the beauty of baseball is you can watch it without missing much action. You know what I mean? Like you can do stuff
Yeah.
and good for Tommy. I hope he gets some NIL stuff out of this.
Well, I saw he's got a shirt coming out on Twitter, so there's some NIL. I mean, looks like a pretty cool shirt. I'm not gonna buy it, but it looks like a
Major
cool
League
shirt.
Baseball wants to keep shooting themselves in the foot and committing professional sports suicide. He's got the door wide open to be the face of the sport here. So, look, he's obviously not going to hit home run after home run after home run every game. At some point, pitchers are going to figure it out a little bit and figure out where not to throw and where to throw. And the pitching will get harder when he gets into ACC play. And they hadn't played the toughest team. Campbell was the first kind of tough team they played. It's still phenomenal. What's most impressive to me is that most of those home runs are going to right or center field. He's only pulled a couple of them. So to have that kind of opposite field power is pretty impressive.
And he's playing pretty well at first base too. He's a well-rounded player. So Tommy Tanks, man, is the plan for the statue already in place yet? Has that been added to the baseball stadium renovations list yet? The Tommy Tanks statue?
Not yet, but it is a 3-phase plan, and if they wait until after Tommy's last year to conclude it, maybe that'll get added to the plans. Maybe they put like a statue in right field beyond the fence.
I'm putting you on the spot here a little bit, but I don't know if off the top of your head you would know what the single season home run record at NC State would be, or if you don't know it, would you know the ballpark?
Yeah, it was. I want to say it was actually a trivia question in a newsletter we put out recently.
Good trivia question.
Because timely. I think it was Pat Clarity had it, and I'm trying to find it.
Because my next question for you is going to be over under Tommy Tanks home runs this year. Because he certainly, with the start that he's had, he certainly has a nice head start on taking a crack at the record. I'm sure that he will break the freshman record, whatever that is.
It was Total John and Tracy Woodson had 25.
25. Okay, so over under Tommy Tanks home runs this year, 24.5.
Over.
I mean, how can you not say over?
Actually, no, I'll say under. I'll say because I predicted on the premium chat, which you can join every Wednesday at noon. Somebody asked me, and I said 24. So I can't go back on that.
Wow! You would pick the one that just short of breaking the record. So then then he'd have something to shoot for his sophomore year. Then it's personal. So, anyways, Tommy Tanks, gotta love the dude. I mean, he just looks like an absolute baseball. He looks like an absolute unit. I mean, love the shades, love the mullet, love the beard. What is he? 18 years old. He's got a beard like you. He's got a better beard than you. So, look, man, Tommy Tanks, he's the real deal. Hopefully, if Major League Baseball comes back anytime soon, the Cubs continue to tank until Tommy Tanks enters the draft, and then maybe finally he could turn around your Cubs. But
maybe baseball will be playing by then.
I would say something about it, but honestly, I don't even want to give it attention because it's just so stupid, and it's just no. I can only watch about 10 minutes of MLB Network before I'm just like screaming at the TV. I gotta turn it to something else. So, anyways, that's gonna do it for this podcast. Sorry we didn't get to men's basketball. I know you guys are really disappointed in that, but we will get back to it next week because it's ACC tournament time for the men, and we're going to have to do some sort of season recap podcast. So we will address all of your men's basketball questions and all that good stuff next week on our podcast, but that's going to do it for this one. Football talk, baseball talk, women's basketball talk. Good luck to the Wolfpack women in Greensboro. I hope I did not create any jinx scenarios with my hot take there, but I'm just saying. I'm just throwing that out there for the Wolfpack fans at home. Anyways, quick reminders before we tune out here. You can follow us on social media. You can give us a follow at our main account at the Wolfpacker on Twitter. Is our main account. At Justin H. Will is my account. If you want to go give me a follow, give us a like on Facebook, NC State Wolfpack on the Wolfpacker.com. Subscribe, rate, and review this podcast wherever you listen to us. We're on Apple, Spotify, Google Play, everywhere you listen to podcasts. Plus, you can always watch us on our YouTube channel, where you should subscribe to our YouTube channel, give this video a thumbs up, and drop a comment while you're at it. Last reminder, head over to thewolfpacker.com right now. Take advantage of the special deal that the On3 Network has going on. For just $1, you can get a year's worth of premium subscription to the On3 Network, which includes all the great work at thewolfpacker.com. So head over there right now. If you call yourself an NC State fan, you better be a part of thewolfpacker.com. That's going to do it for this podcast. For Matt Carter, I'm Justin Williams, and this is March.